I looked up the acceptance rate and I saw that it was average 6 to 7%. And
we are objectively tryhards.
Our purpose here is not to glaze our 10-year-old selves here.
A little bit my purpose.
Screw this. I don't care about school. Stop comparing me to Auntie G's beta, whatever. It's just I'm so fed up with it. Hey, before this episode begins, I want to let you know that we are now on Spotify, so check us out there.
I want you to raise your hand if you consider yourself a high achieving student.
Well, we're not students anymore, technically, but
we're always students. We're always learning at heart. But today is episode 5 of the Con Squared podcast.
I can't believe we made it this far.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected us to make it this far.
A solid, 2 months? 2 months until our last episode?
Which is not the longest break we've had.
Yeah.
Sadly enough.
Yeah, which is pretty surprising. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about the experience of being a high achieving student. We're going to be talking about our experiences, what that was like growing up, what expectations were held upon us by family, friends, teachers, and sort of how we dealt with that situation. And hopefully this story resonates with a lot of you students, because I feel like a lot of our viewers are just very, very smart and just stupidly locked in.
Yeah, really high achieving. I think told they were high achieving from a young age and gifted, and kind of grew up with that, and now maybe feeling a bit lost. That's a big thing with gifted kids. They grow up and they're like, oh, I used to be the guy who always won the multiplication test in elementary school and read at this level, and now what am I?
So when was the first time that you realized that you were potentially a high achieving student, or a little bit different?
I think second grade. It might have been earlier, but I have zero memories before then, because I was literally a brick. But second grade, I remember we had these reading tests, right? We had these different colored books, and you put into different groups based on how well you read. And I was placed into the maximum group. I think it was red group, whatever. And then my teacher pulled me aside one day, and she was like, Mahad, your reading level, you're a second grader, you're reading at a fourth grade level. And I remember that interaction verbatim. Because at that time, when you're a second grader, fourth graders and fifth graders seem like adults, right?
Yeah.
So I'm reading on the same level as a fourth grader. I felt so intelligent. I think that was the first real example of social stratification we experienced in life, the division into reading groups. Because you could see what other kids' reading groups were, because during the whole day, they'd be called upon at different times, and they'd be in the back table. So you could see when the other kids who didn't read so well were called, and I was like, not that I was cocky or anything, but I knew where I belonged.
I remember throughout elementary school, I would just do well enough on exams to the point where a lot of the kids started calling me Einstein. And I remember that was a nickname that I had in second grade. And I think that sort of started leading to the differences.
That was your nickname?
Second grade, yeah.
My nickname was Baljeet.
Was Phineas and Ferb even out then? Were those shows even out when you were in elementary school? I feel like that was
Phineas
middle school.
Phineas and Ferb started really early.
That was
2008 or something.
Yeah, actually. So maybe you were in elementary school.
I was being called Baljeet. I was.
Really?
I'm not lying.
Surprisingly, I never got that nickname. I really thought that I was prime. I mean, with
you
the curly hair, I would get it now. Maybe
you didn't have curly hair back then. We had straight hair.
Yeah. Anyways, so that nickname carried through, and then I think the second sign. I think when it started to get really intense, I remember 2 things: multiplication wars in 4th grade,
1,000%.
And then the National Geographic bee in 5th grade.
Yeah, I was never good
I
at
remember. So I'm sure you guys also have multiplication wars. The essential idea is that
present tense.
What do you mean?
They still have multiplication wars?
No, hopefully you guys are not that young watching this podcast.
If you are, appreciate it.
Yeah, then it means you're just stupidly locked in. But no, I think in the 4th grade what happens is you would split either the class into 2, or you'd go up against another class. 2 lines would form. Your teacher would have multiplication flashcards in front of the class, and whoever answers it first gets the point for their team. And oh my God, I remember kids would go stupidly hard for that.
And the loser gets knocked out, right? And then the winner goes in the back of the line, and then whoever has more people at the end. I think that's how it worked, right?
Yeah.
Dude, one time I got knocked out by this stupid jock, and it pissed me off so much. My whole sense of self and self-concept literally took a hit that day. Just the cool football player who got the girls, I remember. Multiplication wars, genuinely at that time was one of the few things I had going for me. It's one of the few things I had my pride for. So dude, it was 7 times 6 too. It was some bullshit. It was that serious.
It would get most intense when you were the only one left for your class. And then the other class still had 10 people left. And then when you just like 10v1, just solo all those people. We're getting too deep into this, but I remember that
Aura.
it was like a fun experience, and I remember how intense it would get. But then I think one thing that I got really locked in for was the National Geographic bee.
Yeah, to tell.
No, I'll tell them. I'll tell them. So our school, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, they had a geography bee every single year. And it had levels, right? You pass the classroom level, then you get to the school level, then you get to the state level, then you get to the national level. I so badly just wanted to get to the national level. Like, I never made it past the school level. I mean, I won the classroom level, and I remember that's when I thought that I was, oh my God, I'm like so smart. Yeah.
I never won the school level or the class level. I'd always have this one kid who'd win. I wasn't that good at geography.
So what was the next sign for you?
I think beyond the reading group and stuff, something that happened I think only in elementary school we had these report cards on a scale of like 1 to 4. So we didn't get grades, remember? Mm-hmm. It was like 1 to 4, 4 being the highest you can get.
3 was kind of like standard. Like you're good. Yeah.
2, if you got a 2, 2 is when you're borderline.
Yeah.
Usually I'd get mostly 4s and 3s. But whenever I'd go from a 3 to a 4, because they send it out every quarter, so whenever I made that jump from a 3 to a 4, I felt so like intelligent. Right? Remember when you get the 4s and the hard ones too, because you're graded on like these categories like writes effectively, persuasive, whatever, math. Getting those 4s across the board. Oh. And then beyond that, then we had the standardized test in elementary school.
The CMT.
CMT and like map testing.
I didn't have map testing. I had CMTs only.
That may have been middle school. You want to explain what the CMTs were?
Yeah, so we're from Connecticut, so the CMT stands for the Connecticut Mastery Test. It's a test that all elementary school kids and even middle school kids would take to just indicate, where they stand in reading, math, science, and a bunch of other subjects. The scale was from 0 to 400 or 800. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's kind of like the SAT. You have different sections and you have like these different score bands.
All I noticed when the report came, it was like this one long bar, right? Yeah. And divided into 4 colors.
Yeah. And I remember I took that exam in 6th grade and I got top band for everything. And then I remember in math, I actually ended up getting a perfect score.
Yeah, the black bar hit the
it hit
border of the box,
the end of the box. And I was like, holy crap. And I remember
underneath they'd have like the average score for your school and whatever. And it'd always be like way under. Yeah. So then when your thing hit the...
And so I remember when I saw that, I was like, no way. Like a perfect score. It felt like getting like a perfect 800 on like SAT math or whatever.
That what it felt like back then?
Well, that's what it feels like now looking back at it. Like that's the comparison that I make now. And so I think that was like the final. Oh my God, my mic keeps falling. Okay, sorry guys. As you can see, we have these beautiful pencil mics, but the way that we do these is we
do them very poorly.
We have like tape on, just like Scotch tape. Okay, maybe I'll hold it like this. I don't know. Like the CMT is big for you in terms of like, oh shit, like I'm now.
Yeah, for sure. Because I'm like, but I think my ego has been stoked enough.
Yeah, I was about to say we're just talking about like our elementary school achievements.
My red book levels. Yeah.
Our purpose here is not to like glaze our 10-year-old selves here.
A little bit my purpose.
I mean, it is fun.
A little bit my purpose.
It is fun. The point we're trying to make here.
Take me back.
Please, I want to go back.
It
kind of feels like we are though. We're in like a classroom.
You'd have multiplication wars. You'd go home. You'd watch Real Life of Zach and Cody, and you go to bed, and you don't have to do anything.
Oh my God, those are the days.
And now here I have to talk on a stupid pencil mic for my career.
This is fun though.
Love you guys.
I'm actually so grateful that you guys allow us to do this because otherwise, like in New York, working like an investment banking job and just be working like 100 hours a week and miserable. And
thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so much gratitude.
So now that we're done glazing our 10-year-old selves, I guess the question is, why did you have those expectations in the first place?
Contrary to what a lot of people would think, I don't believe it was our parents that pushed us to do. I mean, they had high expectations of us, but they weren't berating us every single day saying, hey, get these A+, get the highest scores you can. And I feel that a lot of people assume that the students who are high achieving have parents who are like that. When in reality, I think a lot of it is intrinsically motivated. And so for me, I think part of it was that I had nothing else to do growing up besides being curious. Our environment was set up such that
That's a bar.
Like I had no access to like video games, We barely ate candy. TV time was limited to after, we finished our homework and came back home from school. And so the main excitement that I got was from exploring the web, good websites like learning and exploring random topics.
Yeah.
And then also just going outside and experimenting, exploring the woods. I remember I was just really obsessed with like picking up random rocks and seeing what kind of rocks they were. And I think that natural curiosity came from having like limited access to tech. And that translated to being better in school, to getting higher grades, to doing well on exams, because that was the only thing / game that I was playing. Like I wasn't playing video games. The game that I was playing was like the academic game in school. And that was the reward system I was fed into. And I think it was a good system, because otherwise I would have just been online, doing whatever like 24/7. So
And it felt good, obviously, when you got the grades, when you knew you were smart. I think that kind of feeds into itself when you realize, oh, this is my game. This is what I'm good at. I'm seeing the results here. And then that extrinsic motivation kind of sets in as well, I feel.
it's true, because once you have those initial signs, all you want to do is live up to that expectation, because once you have that label placed on you, you're like, I'm a smart kid.
Exactly.
So I want to continue being a smart kid. And the opposite is also true, and has just as much of a negative effect, where if now you don't get the high grades at first and you think of yourself as someone who isn't as gifted, it can feed in the opposite direction as well. And so that's why I think a lot of these gifted programs are also, they're important to help the smart students excel, but they also have, I think, a negative effect on students who might not be in that position.
How you think about yourself is typically how you go out in the world and perform. And, so if you think you're smart, you're typically going to do better. If you think the school thinks I'm dumb, I'm in this group, I'm in doing this poorly, you're not going to try as much.
And so for you personally, what was holding you to your standard after you had gotten these signs? Like what kept you going?
A lot of it early on was trying to live up to people's notion of me, which is why when I lost that specific multiplication war, my self-concept was so devastated, because even other people were like, oh my God, like he lost. And it was a sense of self, right? And it was challenged by that. My sense of self being high achieving, academic, whatever, successful. I think why I became high achieving in the first place, similar to you, I also never had tech. I didn't have anything to do really but go outside, but read and stuff. I didn't have my own cell phone until my iPhone 8 in high school. Before that, I'd shared 2 phones with my mom, and I couldn't take it. I literally had no tech.
Yeah.
So then, and I also wasn't the most athletic kid. I think that is, or was part of why I leaned so heavy into the academics, was because in elementary school, all the cool kids ran fast. They did football, they did Pop Warner, whatever. I was not athletic. I didn't do that. What was I good at? Academics.
So a lot of this was, so we're saying it's environmental. A lot of it comes from that internal drive to hold up to your standard. But to what degree do you think it was fueled by comparisons to those around you? Because I remember in elementary school, it wasn't a big thing for me, but then in middle school and especially in high school, a lot of my academic ambition was driven by wanting to become valedictorian and wanting to be number one and wanting to go to a good college. And so it was that shift from environment to internal to now these external accolades.
And like you said, a lot of people get these expectations or whatnot from their parents, right? Which we didn't, because our parents were immigrants. They came to this country and they really never understood the American education
They
system.
never once told you to go to Harvard or me
They
to go to
didn't
MIT.
know what the CMT was, what a 1 to 4. They knew 4 was good. They're shabash beta, whatever. But this whole South Asian idea of they're comparing us, to their cousins and to the other kids in the neighborhood. To be fair, we didn't have a lot of South Asian kids around us. We didn't have a lot of South Asian friends, and all our family was in Pakistan, which kind of shielded us from this traditional dynamic that a lot of brown kids, I'm sure all the brown kids watching this can actually relate. But we didn't have that.
That is such a good point, because from at least what we hear and see online, that can create a really toxic
South
environment
Asian toxic,
where you're being
comparison
compared
game.
to other family, friends, cousins. And I think having that shield protected us, and also just it made it easier for us to focus on our academics, because I feel like it can get very demoralizing when those comparisons are being made every single day. And if anything, it just drives you in the opposite direction. You're like, screw this, I don't care about school. Stop comparing me to Auntie G's beta, whatever. It's just I'm so fed up with it. And we didn't have to deal with that once.
Yeah. So it was a very nice situation in which, like you said, our motivation started intrinsically. Obviously, we had extrinsic motivation. We had other things we wanted to achieve, valedictorian. I really wanted to achieve valedictorian. Like every test, I wanted the highest grade. That came from a mix of factors. But my parents were never, on me like that. They expected me to do well, expected us to do well, but it wasn't Tiger Parent.
I remember the first time that I learned about the Ivy League. I looked up the acceptance rate and I saw that it was average 6 to 7%. That was not intentional. That was not intentional.
So I can't believe it.
You were actually
My
cooked.
brain
Your
actually
brain is.
went right.
You actually gotta like walk out. You gotta go touch some grass, bro.
That was
Come
my
on.
first instinct.
That is actually ridiculous. That didn't register in my mind at all.
Yeah.
I thought, hey, I am in the top 6 to 7%. So naturally, if I just do well enough, I should get into an Ivy League. But then that's when I started going on College Confidential, A2C, and I realized, oh no, it's the 6 to 7% of students who are already like me and super cracked. And so it's among them that I have to stand out. And when I learned about that, I started focusing way more on extracurriculars, even more on academics, SAT. So as part of my motivation was also discovering the reality of the college admissions process, who's actually applying and how cracked these kids are.
Well, you applied like 20 years ago when acceptance rates were so much higher.
Okay, I'm not that old. Not that old. I applied in 2016.
I remember when I got in 2023. I think Harvard
You didn't get in 2023.
I graduated. I got in 2019.
Yeah.
I think that year Harvard had the lowest acceptance rate in like history.
What about Sean? Did Sean break that?
I think it was broken another year, not a Sean's year. But all that being said, my point with that was, I'm him.
So now we know the signs. Now we know why we cared. But what were the effects of caring that much?
Oh, yeah, they were positive and they were very negative. Both. The effects of caring that much. I cared a lot, right? I guess I told the story in the first podcast episode, so I'll summarize it.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with this?
Pretty much grade grubbing.
Yeah. At least the first 2 years of high school, I was so stupidly obsessed with every single point.
Do you think part of that was fueled by me? Because I remember I was also just as much of a grade grubber, and I don't know if I sort of set that
For
standard.
sure. I mean, everything I did was subliminally affected in some way. But it's important to preface that our school had a grading system of 1 to 100, not a 4.0. I didn't realize until I got into college, a lot of people could get 90s, 92s on tests, whatever, and end up with an A in the class, and that'd be a 4.0. We had to fight for every single point for our GPA. So like a 93 on a test, if you got consistent 93s, it'd be an A, but it'd be a 93 average. And when you're going for valedictorian and stuff, you need the highest number. So I'd get like 93 on a test, and I'd start tweaking out. And this has actually happened before, I would like email my teachers asking, hey, do you guys offer extra credit? I'm asking for extra credit on a test I got an A on. So how do you think that went over with the teacher? Not well.
And the negative effects, they span every category. Not only is it internally torturing you to get that score and mentally stressing you out, but then it's also straining all your relationships with your teachers, with your friends, with how people perceive you.
Yeah.
It has a ripple effect.
I needed a wake-up call. I got a wake-up call 10th grade when I was averaging like 3.5 hours of sleep to fight for probably an extra point or two on these tests. At which point I realized my friends think I'm tweaking out for no reason. My teachers are like, you need to relax. And I was like, oh, maybe I do. And I did. Junior, senior year were better. If I got a 95, I got a 95. I'm like, okay, on to the next. It was fine, whatever. But just that level of like pressure I existed with the first 2 years of high school, in which I felt I needed every single point, was so torturous.
My experience was
bad.
Very similar. Honestly, exactly what he summarized is what I also experienced my freshman year, going into my teacher because I got a 96. And I remember I asked him, hey, is there any extra credit available? And he you could hear in his voice, he got kind of mad. Yeah. He was like, Gohar, you have a 96, dude. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And then I remember I walked away. It was like a walk of shame. And
we were objectively tryhards.
But
I was the first 2 years. Objectively, I was.
But thankfully, we pivoted away from that quickly enough, I would say.
I had a hard pivot after sophomore year. I don't know when you pivoted.
I think
if ever.
freshman year, that's when I toned it down a little bit. But one other anecdote, and I'll just say this really quickly. I remember one time I almost got points off in a lab report because it was too long.
Oh, yeah.
I went so hard. I was such a tryhard. Usually you get points off for not doing enough on an exam. I got points off, or was about to get points off, because my lab report was 15 pages and every other kid's was like 3 to 5. It was so dumb. It was so dumb.
Because at that point, you're just giving the teacher so much more work to do.
Yeah, you're just yapping at that point. Like, there is not 15 pages worth of stuff to say. And this was pre-ChatGPT as well. But all those words came from my head. I typed up those 15 pages.
Dude, we'd write so many essays pre-ChatGPT. Do you think a student can't do an MLA 6-7 page paper on their own?
6-7? Was that intentional?
Wallahi, it wasn't. Wallahi, it wasn't. Like, you would have seen it in my face if it was intentional.
Yo, your mind is like screwed, bro. It's like...
But dude, do you remember the struggles of MLA format? You write your name, the teacher's name, the class, and the day in the top left corner. Then you do the title, and you'd sit there for 30 minutes trying to just get it started.
One piece of advice that I have is, if you're trying to start a piece of writing, don't rely on ChatGPT. Maybe bring it in for details and stuff in the middle.
Sure, they're not doing it.
But like, please try to exercise your ability to think, just to get the ball rolling, just for like the core components, because don't lose that part of your thinking ability.
Like you said, the reason why we became so curious, kind of started on this route, was because we didn't have access to tech or anything else. A lot of people nowadays, they're born with phones in their hand with the open AI app.
Yeah.
There's iPad kids, now there's ChatGPT kids.
Yeah.
It's just a given that they already have iPads.
This new era is iPad, TikTok, AI kids. I can't imagine what that world is going to be like.
There are actually such irrevocable effects happening. Did I say that right? Irrevocable?
That sounds right.
Sure. Irrevocable.
Irreversible, irreparable.
Yeah, if I said that wrong, it's because my brain has also been disintegrated.
Irreparably damaged, yeah.
Yes.
I think another issue of being high achieving, and another mental fallacy that a lot of students fall into, is they think it's a zero-sum game. They think that if I don't get high grades, or if I get high grades and someone else doesn't, or if someone else does well, that means I can't also do well. And I think this especially goes for college admissions, where you think that, at my school, only one kid is going to get into Harvard, or only one kid is going to get into MIT or Yale. And even though this might be the case at most schools, it's not like these schools have actual quotas. And so I think it's really important to lower your stress and to improve your mental health, to get out of this mindset of only one person can win, or if they win, then I lose. And it just gets really toxic.
College admissions in the past, I want to say 5 years, I think when COVID happened, has become so incredibly toxic. Like, even in our time, it was very competitive. I know you were competing subliminally, of course, and you were competing senior year. I really tried to not foster that environment with my friends, and I think we did a good job. We'd look over each other's college essays. That was my kind of role when I was a senior in high school. I would look over my friends' college essays. I would help them out. Just because, like you said, it's such a toxic process that I didn't want it to interfere with my friend groups. And I'm sure you guys, like, if you and your friends are all high achieving and all want to go to these Ivy League schools, I'm sure you're not telling them everything you're doing, and that's fine. You don't have to tell them everything, but don't let it interfere in your friend dynamics and everything. You know what I mean?
Because I remember my dynamic was a lot different than yours. Yeah. I remember I still had a lot of close friends who were also applying to these schools. My best friends, to be honest. But I remember, we would tell each other like about our application process at a high level, but we wouldn't talk about we wouldn't talk about our college essay topics. Yeah. We wouldn't read each other's college essays. We didn't really even know what extracurriculars we were all listing. And I think it was just mutually understood that for us, it was a very private process. And that thankfully did not affect or wither away at our friendships.
I think that's fine. I think if you're keeping it private, that's definitely respectable, especially with essays. A lot of people write about different personal topics. And when you read someone's essay, whether you want to or not, you're going to be a bit subliminally primed or, affected by it, and you might alter your own writing. So that was fine. I think the negativity and toxicity comes from when you're actively trying to either hurt other people's chances, or you're actively not I don't know, like sharing opportunities. It's just like I had friends I remember who they would join classes, like upper level classes, without telling anybody and like, just pretending they didn't, and you'd only find out the
You
next
had
school
friends
year.
who did that?
I had like one, and I remember thinking, like he knew that all of us would want to have done that class or joined that class, but we didn't think it was possible. But he over the summer he emailed the school, said, "Can I enroll?" Whatever, and he got special access. So that type of stuff, I'm like, it's a bit iffy,
Like
right?
you withheld that on purpose.
Like you knew, like we're all smart enough to have done that as well.
And I think you get into this territory at schools that have larger gifted student programs or just at private high schools.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that we got lucky about was that we went to a pretty small public high school that traditionally was not sending kids to top colleges or was super competitive. And so for us, once we got the good grades, it was sort of enough. We already felt like we felt kind of secure in our spot.
Yeah.
But I know that at a lot of private high schools, students who even are getting the A's and have killer extracurriculars are very insecure with where they're at because hundreds of other kids are also doing the same activities as them.
Yeah.
And so I imagine if we were at a Stuyvesant or Brooklyn Tech or any of those schools, I can imagine what mental toll it would have taken on us.
Yeah. And Stuyvesant's public.
Yeah,
You have to
yeah.
test in, I think, to get into it. But I knew some people from Harvard who went to Stuyvesant, and oh my gosh,
The drama.
I think they worked harder in Stuyvesant than they did when they got to Harvard.
That's the funny thing. A lot of these schools at these elite high schools say that those high school is harder than college.
Yeah, because when you get into college, that's a whole different video we can talk about, but there's a whole game you can play there. But in high school, you are literally grinding everything to get into one of these schools. So then you could do whatever you want. But yeah, some of these schools, dude, the stories I hear, insane. We had it like pretty like chill, relatively. Because like you said, we got good grades. Our friends all got good grades. But there was no real toxic culture around the activities or whatever, because nobody knew you had to do extracurriculars to get into top colleges. That was not common knowledge at our school. It was like, oh, just do student council, do debate, and you'll get into a good college, which obviously you guys know is not the case, like for the top schools.
It very much wasn't knowledge at our school. I remember most of my extracurriculars were outside of school, and a lot of people, some of the more competitive kids who I didn't really know, they thought that my resume just had nothing on it because I wasn't part of any clubs.
You want to talk your shit?
Maybe I think I've already done this in my first podcast,
Did we touch on
episode,
it?
but maybe I'll touch on it again. There were some really competitive kids, not in my friend circle, but they were keeping an eye on where I was applying to college and what my activities were. They knew that I was applying to Yale, and they knew that I wasn't really active in school.
They were pocket watching like no tomorrow. They were, like, I'll say it as it is, they were loser debate kids. I didn't like them.
But I wasn't part of many clubs in school, and so they would talk to the debate coach about how Gohar's applying to Yale, but he won't get in because he doesn't have a built-up resume. And that was a pretty toxic moment. I remember I didn't say anything, and a few months later I got into Yale with the likely letter, and that was sort of I didn't say anything to them. I didn't confront them about it at all. I just ignored it and went about my day.
You guys barely knew each other anyways. Yeah. Like, I don't know why people like assume and talk.
And I think to people who are in that environment and position right now, the best thing you can do is just ignore, because people are always going to make snide comments. They're always going to make assumptions about you. That's an inevitable part of life. In academics, when you start your first job, people are going to make comments. If you start social media,
whatever you do in your personal life,
whatever
people
you do,
will always assume. And you know what happens when you assume?
You make an ass out of you and me.
Yeah. I've said this line like 10 times this month to people. I don't know why, but I've said this so many times recently.
But it's easy to say, oh, just ignore them. Do you have any advice for how to actually ignore that? How to ignore that noise and to just focus on your thing?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. It's a question that, yeah, I still struggle to deal with. How do you ignore the noise? How do you ignore the haters, the comments, the whatever? Because we still experience that.
Yeah.
And we've definitely gotten better. We've had to get better. You can't succeed in this industry if you let that get to you. Do I have advice? It's just, you got to know that you know what you're doing. You have to have this belief that I'm on this path. I made these choices and I made them for a reason. And whether people understand them or not, as long as I'm happy doing what I'm doing, then why does what anyone else think matter?
And we don't live in a world of perfect information. It's like, even if you deep down, I think, yes, it's important to deep down know why you're trying certain things or doing certain things. And you have to realize that no matter how much you try to put it out there into the world, no matter how many people you try to explain that to, there will always be gaps in that information. Like nobody will ever fully understand your perspective. And
as long as it makes sense to you, why does it matter if it doesn't make sense to anyone else?
And then I think it's important to maybe just have a close circle of people who do actually understand you on a deeper level. And I think these are people that you can go back to for that support whenever you're feeling down or need.
That's a privilege though to have.
And yeah, it is.
A lot of people, and especially nowadays, they have that close circle. And then once you leave the circle, they start shit talking behind your back.
That is true.
So it's tough to find. And it's
family first, to be honest. That's my opinion. I think having a close friend circle is also really important, but I think having family, having siblings that you can lean back on is, I can lean back on you, right? I can lean back on you, right?
You want to throw it back on me?
No. Whenever I'd be stressed, I would always either go to Mahad or Sean or my parents.
True.
First and foremost.
Dude, for some reason, though, I can never imagine what we talked about in high school. I've said this to you before. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's really
weird. We were both just studying, doing homework. What did we actually talk about? I don't know.
It's weird because in college, that's when we talk with each other the way that you see us talk to each other. But then in high school, we both were
just
really locked
I
in.
guess.
No, but I think we were also close in high school, but I feel
No,
like...
I'm sure we were. I just can't remember. All I just remember is the 3 a.m. AP Psych nights. I'm like, where were you during that?
Nights. Yeah. Guys, I have to sincerely apologize. So we did our best to make this a full podcast episode, but we have to run to New York. Right now, our train takes off in like 40 minutes, so we have to run to the train station. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a really fun episode.
It was good. We will definitely continue this conversation.
Yeah, we have a lot more to say, but hopefully a lot of this resonated with you. And again, please leave a comment below with your genuine thoughts. Check us out on Spotify as well, because we've started uploading our podcast there. And yeah, if you need Next Admit College as a help, check us out there too.
Perfect. We'll see y'all
in 2 months or maybe sooner.